Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have 5 cards to show you today. Actually, 2 I will show from start to end, which are these 2. I'm using a technique that I figured out while working with the new Thermoweb Clear Designer Toner sheets. I'm going to show you how to get an outline only effect, solid image, and a stained glass effect. This does require a laser printer or copier, or at least access to one, and a laminator machine, just to keep in mind. This is what the stained glass effect looks like after doing the outline technique that I'm going to show in this video. I've simply colored behind that with some bright alcohol markers. Most of what I will be using today is coming from the April Simon Says stamp kit called Beautiful Day. And although the kit is sold out, you can still get the stamp set and the stencil shown on the screen right now, and the links will be below. So I'm showing 3 cards that I already created, mostly from the kit, except for the last one that I picked up, and it's showing the technique that I'm about to demo. Whether or not you get an outline or a solid effect on the foiling depends on what kind of stamp you're using. And I use both outline stamps as well as a couple of the solid ones from this stamp set. And once I have foiled it, I can save the negative or the leftover piece like I did on the left-hand side for another project. So using these new clear designer toner sheets from Deco Foil is what allows me to be able to do this technique. And I use a piece of copier paper which I've folded 2 times in order to create the perfect A2 size card template to use. And what I did when I created the first round of foiled sheets is I stamped the exact configuration 4 different times, but what I'm going to do today is a little bit different. I'm going to create 2 shaker cards, so in order to make sure that the stamps show up in exactly the right spot, I need a template to follow. And I'm using both an oval die as well as a rectangle die to trace the inside part, so I will have an idea of where the stamps need to show up, where I want them to show up on the shaker window. So I will repeat that pattern on 2 sides before I flip it over and use the rectangle die to create basically an outline of where I want the stamps to go. I could have also used another piece of paper and traced these on and not done it directly on the copy paper, but later I'm going to erase those pencil lines and it works out just fine. I actually didn't have any problems from doing it the way that I did exactly on the screen. So now I'm going to choose some of the stamps that I want to use in the window. So I choose the large leaves, as well as a couple of the solid butterfly stamps and one of the smaller sentiments so that it will all fit within the oval window. Because they're new stamps, as you'll see, I have to stamp them multiple times because this is the first time that they're being used, and it does take a while to break in new stamps, and in particular solid stamps. Now when I do the foiling technique, I'll have an outline effect on the leaves, and then I'll have solid butterflies as well as the sentiment that's stamped here. So now I'm going to flip it over. I'm not going to change the stamps. I'm just going to simply stamp it again with the same ink and stamp it as many times as is necessary in order to get a good solid black result. And as I'll point out later, that really is very important to make this work the best way possible. So now I've switched the paper over to the side where I drew the rectangle outline, and I've chosen some different stamps in a different configuration, and I'm stamping those using my MISTI onto the copy paper and flipping it over and stamping it again, except I did add one more stamp element to this one, as you'll notice. Added the little butterfly trail on the one on the right. So now that I've got that complete, I have my template so that I can copy it using the laser copier that I mentioned earlier onto the designer foil sheets. As you can see, I'm erasing all the lines. I'm doing some final cleanup to make sure that I get a good result whenever I do run the copy. So what I do is go over places on the stamp design where it didn't stamp in as solidly black as I would have liked. So a black marker to the rescue to fix those little issues. I also had a place on the opposite side where I should have allowed the ink to dry or used a heat tool to dry it before flipping it over. But I was able to rescue that by using a white gel pen and the same marker to fix some of those mistakes, and in the end it turned out just fine. So off screen I am going to go to my laser printer and copy that sheet onto the Clear Designer Toner sheet. So now you can see the result of that. I'm showing it against white paper so you can see what it looks like, because otherwise it wouldn't show up very well on the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. I'm only going to be using 2 of the pieces to create cards for this video and save the other for another project. So I'm going to be using 3 different foils when I put these things together, and I'm using the Jelly Bean Green from Gina K Designs for the foliage part. I'm using the silver foil that came in the kit, and plain black Deco foil for the sentiments. And before I take it over to the laminating machine, I'm being careful to make sure that the foil is placed exactly where it needs to be. And as you can see, you can overlap pieces of foil with each other and it doesn't impact the final result. So now for the cool part, the reveal. And as I peel off each one of the pieces of foil, you see the beautiful results. You could keep this all one color or do as I did in this example and combine different colors together on the same run through. So this is an incredibly versatile way to use existing stamps that you own, whether they're solid or outline. It really is something that I think could be of value to you if you have at least the access to the printer and a laminating machine. So now I'm going to start doing the final construction of the cards. So I'm getting out the same oval die that I used earlier to draw pretty much the pattern for where I stamped the images, and I'm cutting down one of the pattern papers that came with the kit from Simon Says Stamp. So I'm going to be cutting down the pattern paper. Well, my plan was to actually cut it a little bit smaller than a standard A2 size card. Actually, I messed up and I didn't cut it down enough, as you'll see when I apply it to the solid blue card base later. I should have cut off some more before I got to that step, but I didn't, and I was fine with the end result anyway. It's just something to keep in mind if you actually wanted a frame around the pattern paper when you put the final project together. So something I'm doing in this case to pop up the oval part where the window will be is using fun foam that has adhesive on the back. I'm using the same oval die on that piece of fun foam, and I'll run it through my die cut machine. And then I'm going to stack all these layers on top of each other. First, I'm going to use some dry adhesive from Tombow to run the tape around the inside or outside edge of the oval window with the pattern paper facing down. And once I've added all the tape, then I'm going to pick up the clear piece and frame that up where it needs to go. And if there's anything left on the edge, you can just trim that off like I'm doing right here. The next thing I will do is stack this on top of the fun foam in order to have some space for the shaker material that I'm going to put in here. And as you'll see shortly, I'm not going to be using standard sequins for this particular shaker card. I picked up something new from a recent scrapbook expo. It's actually these little tiny, I don't know whether to call them sequins or beads, but they're not like micro beads because they're round, but they're not round in the way that means that they will just run, go all over the place. So they're actually flat, kind of like beads or sequins, but they're really tiny. So it's just something that's a little bit fun and different for adding to your shaker cards. And since this is a pretty standard shaker card, I'm really speeding through this point because I imagine many of you have seen a standard shaker card being put together, and that pretty much is what this is at this point. The next card or final card for this video is another shaker card, so it's pretty much the same process repeated, just on different pattern paper. And I used some sequins from Little Lucy's Things. Also, what I'm showing here is something I could have left out but decided to leave in because I messed up on the frame of this pattern paper and I had to go back in and fix it. So I'm cutting a couple more pieces from the same pattern paper and gluing them to the bottom and the top, and the stripes are going in the opposite direction in the sides so that it looks more like a frame, and it covered up my little mistake at the bottom. I really thank you for continuing to watch my videos, thumbs upping, and leaving me comments. If you have not taken the time to subscribe to my channel, I hope that you will do so at this time. Thank you very much for watching.